Well, you have made it to a milestone day. Congratulations. Day 5. This is a big day, actually, because this signals kind of a turning point in the course. We're going to really shift into high gear. I know it probably feels like you're already in high gear, but we're going to go into super overdrive now to sort of race to the end of the class, and it will go by, I think, more quickly than you think. You're also at a milestone moment because you're at the end of 5 straight days. You will now, after today, have 2 days where there is nothing assigned, nothing due. Don't waste those days. I have recommendations for them at the end of this introductory screencast. But think about where you're going with this and what you're going to do. So let's work through this day just like we have the others. If you need the syllabus, there it is. You're watching the introductory video, so it will be here for you now. The objectives. The objectives for today. Today we're going to learn how to measure social impact rather than just student achievement. And I say versus student achievement mostly because I mean usually in education, when we want to say how well something is doing, we measure how well students perform. That can be grades, that can be standardized testing, that can be some other measure of how well students are doing. But it usually has some element of a test or an evaluation like that. But with social impact, we're measuring things a little differently. It's not like you're just measuring outcomes, although that's certainly a part of it. You'll see what I mean, I hope, when you get through Module 5.1. We're also going to think about why accountability for educational entrepreneurship is necessary and how it is used. So I will say that with a little bit of, hesitation, cynicism, whatever the right word is, because as a former classroom teacher in both the United States and in Japan, I am not always the biggest fan of the word accountability because it usually doesn't mean, in educational circles anyway, keeping people truly accountable for creating excellence. It means, I don't know how to say this without sounding super negative, but it's more like a punishment than a reward. And I want to think about how accountability for educational entrepreneurship is a reward and not a punishment. So I hope you're thinking about that as well. All right, let's look at the learning modules. So Module 5.1, Measuring Social Impact. I'm going to ask you to read a couple things and watch a video. What a shock. I don't know if you're familiar with this pattern yet. So reading 2 things from the Harvard Business School, one by Hannah and one by Ibrahim and Rangan, The Hard Work of Measuring Social Impact and the Limits of Nonprofit Impact. These are both interesting. This one is a little more academic-y, so that's why I've said read, skim. Not that you're not capable of reading academic work. That is not how that is coming across, or is supposed to come across. It's because I don't want you to spend like an hour of your life on this paper. I want you to get the essence of what the limits of nonprofit impact are. They're actually trying to think about how accountability for nonprofit or social impact is sometimes overestimated and how you might want to be more cautious about how you think about measuring social impact and keeping social innovations accountable. This one talks about how it's difficult because it isn't just an outcome measure like profit if you're in the business world or student achievement scores if you're in the education world. You have to think about what the impact is of the social innovation, which means you're often measuring social phenomena. And then there is a very short video called Measuring Your Social Impact, and it talks about how do you make a plan for measuring social impact. I actually like it. It's actually only 2 minutes and 45 seconds, although I estimated 3 there. And it does I think this video does a really nice job of just outlining very quickly how you can develop measures for something that you're doing that are really very empirical, very observable, very, very real. That's kind of cool. Module 5.2, Accountability in Social Ventures in Education. So I'm asking you to look at something from our friend Ibrahim again. It's another document. I'm asking you to work through this one. It's a little more academic-y, but you are graduate students in the College of Education at Lehigh University. This should be a breeze for you. Look at the many faces of nonprofit accountability, and then I want you to watch this video. And what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to really pair these two things. So you will learn about nonprofit accountability or social innovation accountability, whatever word you want to use, in this reading. And then you will see an example of a social innovation, right? Specifically, this is how to create career opportunities for youth or young adults that have been incarcerated, they've been in prison or jail. And I want you to think about how is this social innovation accountable? What are the faces of accountability for this social innovation? In other words, try to critically evaluate what's going on in this video and see where you can see accountability. Or if you don't see any, tell me or think about where you see opportunities for accountability. In other words, ways that you can measure what they're doing, creating opportunities for formerly incarcerated youth, and keep those organizations that are doing that accountable for it. All right. Then finally, another case study looking at focusing on results at the New York City Department of Education. This is going to be a case study about how to use data. It is a 30-page long case study. I should have put read skim here as well. I'd like for you to skim this one. If you're going to spend time on anything, like a lot of time, it's right here. Spend a lot of time on this. Spend less time on this. But it is good to take a look at it. Okay. Next, application activities. Guess what? You're drafting the first half of your implementation strategy section. That's super exciting. No more than 3,000 words. Clearly labeled subsections that look like this. I want you to have an educational innovation timeline. I'd like for you to think about it being 3 to 5 years. If it's less than that, it's probably going to be difficult. I would like for you to represent this in some kind of chart and identify the milestone activities and accomplishments. So now you're bringing your innovation idea to life. And you're bringing it to life by first identifying how you know what's happening and when it's supposed to happen. That is, how do you measure what's happening and how do you keep yourself accountable as you're moving through it. And then you assign times to that. When will that be done? What will you achieve by the first month or 3 months or 10 months or whatever? Next, I would like for you to think about a phase 1 strategy. So I'm going to suggest that if you're going more than a year, or even if you're going a year, you think about stages of implementation. So phase 1 is often an awareness stage. We're just trying to get people aware of what they need and what they can do, right? Stage 2 is often a content stage. So making sure people know what they need to know, can do what they need to do, and you're beginning to actually start whatever the innovation is. And then phase 3 is generally, it's in full production mode, or production is not the right word, but full implementation mode. You're no longer worried so much about awareness programs or training issues. Now in phase 3, you're just getting it done. You're getting the work done that you said you needed to do. So I'd like for you to list some goals for phase 1 specifically, and I'd like for you to represent those as a detailed list with some accompanying explanation. And I'd like for your goals to be implementable, meaning that they are SMART. Now, this is something that I cover in a lot of detail in some other classes, so if you've had me for the grant writing class in particular, or the evaluation class, if you've been around that long, because I used to teach it before the last couple of years, you will have heard me talk ad nauseum about SMART goals. So SMART goals are specific, measurable, appropriate, realistic, and timely. Specific meaning that they're specific enough that we know exactly what you're measuring. Measurable meaning that you can see something happening. It's empirical. You can be quantitative, qualitative, I don't care, but you need to be able to see something happening. It needs to be appropriate. In other words, appropriate for the context, appropriate for the target population, appropriate for the thing that you're measuring. If we were in a research class, this is when I would use the word validity. It needs to be valid for the innovation that you are trying to implement. It needs to be realistic. In other words, can you really do this? Given the organization and its infrastructure and capacity, can you implement this goal? And it needs to be timely. And by timely, I don't mean that it's, right on time. I mean that it has some sort of a time period set to it. So you're going to accomplish this thing by the end of October or by the end of the 6th month. It's going to take 2 weeks to do, 5 months to do, 3 years to do. I don't know what it is. You tell me, but it should be timely. Your next section should be organizational capacity building. You'll actually start this today and you'll finish this for tomorrow's assignment. For today, the organizational capacity building must include these subsections. So you have 3 subsections and then some other subsections that go under those. For an example of what this looks like, please see Wolkenkreitz 2008 starting on page 112. That is the key for you. It's an example. You can see what somebody else did. Now remember, it's not going to be education related in the example. You've looked at Wolkenkreitz before, so you know that. But I would like for you to take a look at the example because you can follow that format and see how they're actually explaining the information. Finally, last thing you do for the day, I would like for you to post comments and questions at the bottom of this page. Just like you've done before, think back to the objectives and then think about what the objectives are and then how the readings, the videos, and the assignments helped you achieve those objectives and comment on that. You can question it, you can critique it, you can just say here's what happened. You can ask questions about the course or the assignments in general. You can do all sorts of things on the discussion board, but please make sure that you reflect back on what you did and how it helped you achieve those objectives for the day. Now, I mentioned before that you're at a milestone moment in the class because you're about to have a two-day period with no required assignments. That's an important 2 days, but may I recommend the following. One is, if you have not been doing this, you need to spend some time with your family and friends at some point. You probably are doing this anyway. Some of you can't help but do this, but make some time for some quality experiences with your family and friends and enjoy yourself without thinking about this class for at least a few hours. I know that this kind of a condensed format can be all-consuming, so I want to encourage you, highly encourage you, to make some time for your family and friends, take a break from the class, give your brain another place to go for a few hours at least. Next, I'd like for you to spend some time looking at what the final draft strategic plan should look like. You can do that by looking at the syllabus or looking at the course website for the final day of class. Look at the sections that it's asking you to use and look at the order that they're in. These are the same sections I'm asking you to write on a day-to-day basis, but I want you to start compiling it. Put the sections that you've already written into one document in the order that is required for the final assignment and start revising the text as needed. In other words, get ahead, right? There's a final assignment coming. It's a big one. It's worth a lot of points. You don't want to mess up. Next, get at least 1 day ahead on your reading and video watching and post comments related to that. You might wait until the day itself to do the written work, but I want you to get ahead on the reading and video watching assignments. There's no reason for you to not be able to do that for at least 1 day. And then finally, if you're still able to stand, if you're still able to lay down, sleep as much as you can. Sleep is super important. It's crucial. And I know that I'm asking you to do some superhuman stuff during this course because there's so much that we're packing in. But I know that you're burning your candle at both ends, as we say, and so you need some extra sleep. If it means you take an hour-long nap on Saturday or Sunday or whenever, do that, but give yourself a break. Finally, ask me any questions you have. Happy to answer. Ask your classmates questions. I bet they'll answer too. You're doing a great job. You're about to embark on the milestone day, day 5, and then you're going to have 2 days to rest, to get ahead, and to really push for the finish line. So congratulations and keep going.